Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope you all had a lovely weekend, and I hope you're ready for another busy week of learning. So this week we're going to be learning about Antarctica and the animals that live in Antarctica. We started talking a little bit about Antarctica last week, so just pause this video and see if you can remember anything that you learned when you were looking at the Go-Getters Antarctica resources last week. So just pause this video now and see what you can remember. Fantastic, well done, you've remembered lots of things. So, Antarctica, can you remember where it is on this map? This is a map of the world. What I want to know is, where is Antarctica? That's right, Antarctica is all of this white continent down here at the bottom of the world in the southern hemisphere of the globe. Now, if that's Antarctica, can you remember where we live? That's right, we live here in the United Kingdom, and that is part of Europe. Well done. Fantastic. Okay, so as we know, Antarctica is a continent and it's right at the bottom of the world. And you might hear some people calling it the South Pole. Now, can you remember why Antarctica is often shown as white on a map? That's right, because Antarctica is a very icy and snowy place, so it's always shown as white on a map. Well done. So, a little bit of facts here about Antarctica. So most of the land in Antarctica is covered all the time by snow and ice, and only 1% of the land is showing. So that's a tiny amount of land, and all the rest of it is covered with snow and ice. And there are some huge icebergs in the Southern Ocean. I'm going to show you a picture in a little bit of some icebergs. The icebergs are big pieces of ice that have broken off and they're just floating in the ocean. Antarctica is the coldest continent on Earth, and the world's coldest temperature ever recorded was in the Antarctic, and it was minus 89.2 degrees. So where we live in England in the winter time, usually through the day it's about 7 or 8 degrees, and sometimes at night time it drops down to about 2 or 3 degrees. But in Antarctica it's minus 89, so it's really freezing in Antarctica. Okay. Now then, I want you to just pause this video and have a chat with your grown-up about whether you think that people like us can live in Antarctica. So just pause this video now and have a think. Can people live in Antarctica? Great, there's some really good discussions there. So no one has a permanent home in Antarctica, so nobody lives there permanently. But scientists and researchers and explorers can go to Antarctica and they can stay at research stations. So this picture here shows two men who I think are scientists, and they are working in Antarctica. So have a look at the clothes they're wearing. What sort of clothes are they wearing that are good if you are visiting Antarctica? Can you describe the clothes? So we've got obviously big thick jumpers and coats. We've got a woolly hat. It looks like he's got some thick trousers on here. And he's got something on his hands to keep his fingers warm, some nice gloves. So if you were going to Antarctica, what sort of clothes would you wear? Just pause the video now and talk about that with your grown-up. Great, welcome back. Some really good suggestions there. If I was going to Antarctica, I would take some really thick fluffy socks to keep my toes warm, and some thick boots to help me walk on the snow. And I would take lots of thermal trousers to keep my legs warm, and a big coat that keeps me nice and warm. It might be fluffy on the inside so that I stay nice and cosy. I'd definitely take a nice warm hat and some gloves. And I think you'd need to wear lots of layers to keep warm in Antarctica. You couldn't just have one jumper on. You might have to have a vest and then a t-shirt and then a jumper and then a jacket and then a coat to try and keep warm. So, in the slide before, the picture of two men that were scientists working in Antarctica. What do you think scientists go to Antarctica for? So pause the video now and have a talk with your grown-up about why you think scientists like to go to Antarctica. What do they like to find out? What's their job there? Welcome back. Great, well done. So scientists work in Antarctica to discover new things. So they might find a new animal there, or they might measure and test the ice. They go to check the effects of global warming, and they might want to find out more about the light and the ice and the water, and they might study the animals that live there, and loads more things that scientists can do in Antarctica. But have a think now, if you were a scientist and you were going to Antarctica, what would you want to find out about? Pause the video now and have a think about what you would want to know about Antarctica. Some really good ideas there, well done. I think if I was a scientist, I would want to know why it's so cold there, and I would want to know if the ice and the snow ever melts and how long it takes to melt, and I'd be very interested in global warming. We've talked about global warming a little bit at school, and we know that if we don't take care of our world, places like Antarctica will start to melt and the animals will be in danger of extinction. So we've talked a little bit about that before. We might talk about that a little bit more next week. So if I were a scientist, I would definitely want to know how I could help the world so that places like Antarctica could stay forever and take care of all our animals. So here is a picture of Antarctica. So I want you to have a think for just a minute and try and describe this picture. So you might say that the ice is thick ice, or you might say that the snow is bright white snow. So pause the video, have a look at the picture and see if you can come up with a describing phrase or a describing sentence to describe this picture. Some lovely describing words there, well done. If I was going to describe this picture, I think I might say, I can see solid ice, I can see freezing snow. You could think about how it might feel to touch that ice and to touch that snow. So you might say that the snow is freezing cold to touch. So well done, some really good descriptive words there. Now this is a picture of an iceberg that I mentioned at the beginning. So an iceberg is a large part of ice that's broken off from an even bigger part of ice, and it just floats around in the ocean. And some icebergs can look quite small on top of the ocean, but then under the water they can be much bigger at the bottom, so they can be quite dangerous. And we had a maths lesson last week about a floating iceberg with Pedro, Rossi and Gasper on the iceberg, so I hope you enjoyed that. And here's a picture of some mountains in Antarctica. What's on the mountains? What's covering them? Lots of snow, well done, and I can see some fog here at the top of the mountain, so it must be a very cold and eerie place in Antarctica. So tomorrow we're going to find out more about the animals that live in Antarctica. But what I would like you to do is to have a think about what animals you think might live there. So if you might think that a spider lives in Antarctica, I want you to think, why do I think a spider lives in Antarctica? So have a think over the rest of the afternoon. Have a think about what animals do you think might live in Antarctica. And tomorrow when you come back, we will find out the animals that live there. Thank you for coming. I'll see you tomorrow.